College football is in full swing throughout the nation and definitely here in the South. I always say we have 3 seasons. We have summer, and we have New Year's Day, and we have football season. And football season is in full swing, and I was watching some games this weekend, a lot of games, and I saw one particular game where one of the teams seemed to be having injury after injury after injury. As they say, plagued with injuries. And as an exercise physiologist, the first thing we think when we see that is, what does their strength training program look like? Contrast that with phrases such as the inevitable march of time or the natural aging process, where we have weakness, we have debilitation, knees go bad, back goes bad. Well, if you think about it, it leads me to the same conclusion. Is it aging or is it strength training? Today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for joining us today on another podcast, dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, and attacking my favorite topic, which is aging. And the ridiculous concept that time passing on a calendar causes deterioration, which is an absolute lie. Before we dive headfirst into my topic today, which is, of course, strength training, I want to tell you how to get in touch with the show if you have any questions. You can reach us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also contact me at Garret, Garrett, just like Levi Garrett, Garret at personaledgefitness.com. That, of course, is our website. Also, Personal Edge Fitness is our Facebook page. Hit us up on Twitter or X at Team PE. If you have any questions, you can contact us also through our info page on the website. If you have any questions about this podcast or any others, or if you have an idea for a podcast or have a question about anything that may seem like a myth in the fitness field, which there are many. The greatest myth is, of course, my favorite to talk about, and one I've been doing a series on for quite some time now, and that is the lie of age. The ridiculous concept that time passing on a calendar causes deterioration. As I always say, if you're a fan of the podcast, you've heard this multiple times. I want to make sure it's very clear, and please tell everybody you know, and especially anybody that you think would be opposed to this thought process, and that is that the ridiculous concept that time passing on a calendar causing deterioration is an absolute lie. Anybody saying that is lying to you. Anybody saying that is a liar. It's dictated by 4 different things. Your ability is dictated by 4 different things, like I said a minute ago: fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and the absolute most important, which of course is mindset. Because if you believe you're going to fail, well, there's not a whole lot I can do for you. Got an idea for this podcast by watching college football. Talking to a rival team, 2 hours that, they're so talented, but it's not fair that they're having to play this game late in the season because they have so many injuries. After we get through arguing about the fact that, you were bragging about so much depth at the beginning of the season, and now you're saying you have injuries on your first string and your second string doesn't seem to be able to play. Once we get past that argument, I always think about, if you're having that over and over again, well then, obviously, as an exercise physiologist, we know the preparation for preventing injuries, and injuries is a part of sport, but the preparation for avoiding injuries or making injuries not as impactful, lessening the chance of a severe injury. That's all based on your conditioning, on your strength training program. This is why not only football and all athletics, universities that have any kind of athletic program, as quick as they can, they put money into their strength training. And then there's some impressive facilities, not only at the D1 level. I mean, there are D3. There's some impressive facilities that these D3 schools have with strength training coaches, and hopefully most of them have this, but hopefully they know not to get Joe Weekend certified personal trainer to do the strength training. They typically get somebody that has a degree in the field in kinesiology, in athletic training, one of the fields that we look for all of our staff members here at Personal Edge Fitness, and they usually have a really good certification. Now, make it very clear, the degree is far more important than the certification, but the certification is a real test of their knowledge, and there's 2 that are the best, which are ACSM, HFI, Health Fitness Instructor. ACSM is American College of Sport Medicine. They literally wrote the book. They are the gold standard. They wrote the book on exercise testing and prescription, which every single certification uses. And then, of course, there's NSCA, which is National Strength and Conditioning Association, and there are CSCS certifications. And we have both of those certifications on our staff. And so these strength trainers have that kind of a background. They're studied in not only the different exercises, but how to put those exercises into play on the field, no matter what the sport is. They'll look at a diver, and they'll look at the mechanics that they go through in diving, the different twisting moves. The twisting moves in diving are different than the twisting moves in gymnastics. And they learn those mechanics, and they think about the muscles that are working in concert when they're doing those moves, and then they'll go do functional type training, basic strength training, but also functional type training to train those athletes so that they can do those moves over and over and over and over again. And that's in contact and non-contact sport. In contact sport, it becomes even more prevalent. In contact sports, they're wearing pads, they're wearing protection, but the muscles are their main protection. Muscles are in the body to protect your superstructure, which is your bones, and that's kind of the last line of defense of the bone, and so your muscles are there to protect the bone, and they protect it in many ways. One thing, just from impact. You fall all your life. We talk about falls a lot when we talk about seniors, and seniors really focus in on, I had a fall the other day. Well, when you're younger, you don't pay attention to the fact you fall all the time. There's not a single year of my life that I haven't fallen. But we focus on it in seniors and do strength training and maintain that muscle, that if they fall and land on their hip, well, if they have good, strong hip muscles, they'll get a bruise, just like you will when you're 14 years old. So that's one way the muscle protects the bone. The other way is, of course, avoiding the fall. If you start to go sideways, just using the hip fractures and hip falls that affect your hip as an example, usually those are side-to-side movements, lateral movements that cause that. And if you're off balance and you can step sideways quickly because you have a very, very developed, a very strong medial glute, then you can avoid the fall. And so the muscles protect the bones in many ways, and they're the last line of defense, the natural line of defense that's in your body. And if it's in a contact sport, they're behind the pads. There's a hip pad in football, and I'm sure that other contact sports have the same thing. And so when I see a lot of injuries, that's the first thing I think about, of course, is their strength training program. But the reason I use that as a contrast is I'm talking about getting into those myths that the natural aging process. To me, that's like scraping your hands across a chalkboard when I hear that phrase, because it's basically made up. It is something that we've made up just from observation. And also this constant belief that's just beat into us, that is just bored into our brain, about the fact that as time passes, you degenerate. Just believe that. Just accept it. Never mind that there's no clinical study that proves that. Just believe it. And we get that beat into our heads. We come up with these, with all due respect, they're nonsensical phrases. The natural aging process. There's no such thing as the natural aging process, because that is saying that age is a result of things that spontaneously happen. And I've given the definition of age several times. I'm going to paraphrase it right now. I'm a little low on my water, so I'm not able to pull. I don't know if I can pull the exact definitions I want to use in my talk all the time. But age is occurrences that happen either spontaneously or through deliberate action. And I argue that every year we chip away and find that the things that we just believe spontaneously happen. In other words, spontaneous. There's no reason why it happened. It just happened. There's nothing that happens for no reason. Something caused it. There's always a cause and effect. If there's an effect, there's a cause. And every year we're chipping away at that natural aging process, that spontaneous things, and we're showing where deliberate action caused them. And today I'm speaking about that. I'm speaking about something that you hear a lot, that it's a real buzz term. And I'm glad that it's making it into mainstream about the fact that, as you age, you need strength training. Strength training is new. It's like I think it's great. I think it's great that, of course, that is becoming more prevalent, mainly because early in my career, there was a strong belief. It was told by my physician, advised their patients that, you shouldn't do strength training. Just walk and just stretch, and you don't need to do that strength training. That's dangerous. Well, we're starting to finally get away from that ridiculous lie with no scientific data behind it whatsoever. And people are believing now that, hey, maybe the strength training, there's something to it. The part I don't like about it is that we're focusing on beginning strength training, or there's more of a need for strength training because you're older. Well, the need never changed. There's a need for strength training from the cradle to the grave. If you don't think, I don't see any babies lifting weights. No, but you see them trying to stand up. You see them encouraged, come here, walk to daddy. You're seeing them encouraged to walk. That's strength training. That's developing, not only is it developing balance, developing the cerebral cortex, but you're also developing leg strength. You're developing muscles there. PE at a young age, that's strength training. And yes, of course, they're doing calisthenics. They're going to do push-ups and jumping jacks and pull-ups and sit-ups at an early age, but just playing kickball, going out and running bases, running down the field and back, sack races. We used to do, when I taught gymnastics in our preschool classes, we would do doggy runs and we'd do hot dog rolls, and basically getting on all fours and having them run like a dog across the floor, and then lying on their back and doing a hollow out roll on their side like a hot dog. That's a form of strength training. It starts from the cradle and should go all the way to the grave. The problem is we have that period of time, and it happens to do with lifestyle change. One of the 4 concepts: fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and then mindset. And that lifestyle change usually occurs, and this is very observational in this study because it can occur at different times for different people, but genuinely it occurs somewhere in that 18 to 25 range. There's a lifestyle change. And it can be 30 for some people, and it can be 16 for some people where it starts, but right around that age. Why? Well, look at the transition you're going through in your life at that time. Going from grade school to high school to either the service, a job, college, whatever it is, and your activities change. And then not until you have either a midlife crisis or you start noticing lack of function, you're not able to keep it up with your kids, do you start turning around and doing something about it. With the senior population, and a lot of studies that have been done, I'm going to go over some studies today on senior fitness, they're finding that, wow, maybe the strength training, there's something to it. This is actually, we're able to actually show where people are making a difference. My argument is that it doesn't need to start there. It should have never stopped. There's not a more of a need at that age. There's just a need, as always. It's sort of like saying, when you get older, you really need to eat. You need to eat. That's a good time to start focusing on eating. No, you need to eat all your life. You need to take in more water when you get older. No, you need to take in the amount you should have been taking in the entire time. But what we're finding, and this is the reason for the podcast and talking about strength training, is typically when you hear, and I've talked about this several times, but we need to do this activity, this exercise, or even nutrition for that matter, that we usually associate with somebody younger. We need to start doing it when we're older. And then there's that second part. But you got to do it. You're not going to have the same results. It's going to be slower, and it's going to be it's not as good, and you need to take extra precautions that you've never taken before. Well, it's actually a lie. Oh my gosh, I'm not so sure if I'm going to send my mother to go see Personal Edge because they don't take precautions when they're working with seniors. Of course we do. But we take the same precautions with somebody at X number on the calendar, whatever number you want to think is an older number, that we would with the deconditioned athlete at whatever number you want to think of as young, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with time on the calendar. It has to do with deconditioning. And what they're finding with these studies, which is something I've known for years, and there's no scientific evidence is anything different, but there are quite a few studies on okay, let's do strength training with seniors, and is it really different? Is the muscle development any different than if I were to train a highly seasoned athlete? I just did a podcast, I hope you heard it, on one of my 2 heroes. My last podcast was finally did a podcast on Dr. Kenneth Cooper. You hear me talk about him a lot. He is the father of fitness. Dr. Cooper is the whole reason I have a job, is the whole reason we have a fitness revolution, is the whole reason we know that, hey, wait a second, maybe we can live a lot longer. And he started his studies on aging in 1969. He started one, 1970 he started another, and those 2 studies are still going on today. So you can imagine the data he has on this. Plus, the clinic has done, I can't keep up with how many studies they've done. But I've got a couple I'm going to talk about today. Cooper Clinic have shed a lot of light on this, though. And a quote from Dr. Cooper: "Many of the symptoms we associate with aging, such as frailty and loss of independence, are largely due to muscle loss from inactivity and not age itself." Now, why am I telling you that? Wow, that's a big, letting a cat out of the bag there, Garrett. I hope you're thinking that. I really hope you're thinking that. But here it is. Typically, when we look at challenges or questions in the health field, well, we want to go to the top. We want to go to a doctor. No offense to the medical community whatsoever. I don't study internal medicine. They typically don't study muscle development. Dr. Cooper has. He also has a master's in public health. He has the foremost facility on aging research on fitness and exercise. But here he is saying it. Many of the symptoms we associate with aging, such as frailty and loss of independence, are largely due to muscle loss from inactivity, not age itself. And I'm quoting here, drawing some information from the research on this, that there was a specific study that the researchers at the Cooper Clinic did, where researchers found that participants who stopped strength training exhibited a more rapid decrease in muscle mass and bone density compared to their counterparts who continued. Now, the ages that he used here, he's done this with 70-year-olds, he's done this with 80-year-olds, he's done this with 90-year-olds, and he's getting the same exact results. Okay, you're probably not surprised by that. I hope you're not. And I think that's great if you're not. This is the other one, another study that was completed on aging, and I thought it was fascinating. And the reason being is that they compared the development of muscle with senior fitness to the same growth patterns, the same type of exercise, the same type of reactions to adolescent exercisers. And guess what they found? They found in this study that they were identical. They found that people that are doing strength training at a magic number on the calendar that seems to be old, the development of the muscle, the reaction to exercise, when done with the same nutrition, but they use special nutrition. All of them took Geritol or something. No, same nutrition, same strength training, same exercises. As with adolescent exercisers, they were seeing the exact same muscle development. No change. There's no but on this. I'm not leaving something out. They didn't have to put training wheels on it. However you want to say it, doesn't matter. It's identical. Another quote is Dr. David Heber, a director of UCLA Center for Human Nutrition, mentioned in one of his papers, the human body's capacity to develop muscle is not solely a young person's privilege. Listen to what he says here. And think about this. This goes for teenagers. This goes for my 80-year-olds. With the right nutrition and consistent strength training, even seniors can achieve muscle growth rates comparable to younger individuals. That's probably the biggest point of this podcast, is that it's amazing that I have to do a podcast about this. To me, it seems like, wow, let's do a podcast on when you drink water, do you swallow the same at 80 as you do when you're 14? To me, it's stupid as that. But the reason we have to do these studies is because we constantly believe that deterioration occurs strictly because time passes on a calendar. Dr. Laura DeFina is an internal medicine doctor, done a lot of studies in this field, which is why she is now the chief science officer of the Cooper Clinic. She commented on one of her studies stating that those who integrate regular strength training into their routines see not only preserved muscle mass and stronger bones, but a remarkable difference in overall health markers. Now, why is that? You've probably heard that. You know, if you exercise, everything, all your health's going to be better. Well, it's true, but why? Think about excess body fat. Now, you need some body fat, but excess body fat as a negative tissue. Now, what I mean by negative tissue is that it basically, it's stored energy is what it is. It's there because your body believes that you're overeating, and evidently you're preparing for some time where you won't have extra food. You know, you're going in Alaska and you're going to be hiking in the wilderness and you won't have food. And that's what your body believes. It believes two things. You need insulation for warmth, or you need excess energy. And that's what fat is. But it doesn't do anything. In fact, when you get excess fat, it can slow down all of your processes because the fat doesn't end up just around the belly. And by the way, time on a calendar, I heard this the other day from somebody who I'm a big fan of, is a celebrity that's a big proponent of fitness. And he said in one of his rather inspirational quotes, I was agreeing with him and everything. And then it said, you know, but when you get older, this just automatically happens. And Dr. Kenneth Cooper has said many times that extra fat deposits seem to occur as we get older. And we believe that to be an effect of time. And he said it's not. It's a physiological effect. But back to what I was saying, the celebrity said, and you also add fat around your belly more when you're older. No, that's where your body is always stored excess fat. Or typically in women, they're going to store it typically in the lower parts of their body. And that has to do with protecting and having babies and what have you. But not only do you store it there, it ends up in your bloodstream. It ends up around your organs. And it ends up slowing down all the processes. It becomes a drag on your body. Well, conversely, first thing, getting rid of that excess body fat is going to take that drag away. But conversely, if you add muscle is a positive tissue. It requires energy, believe it or not, to live, but it increases circulation. It makes your body run more efficiently. It makes activities easier. So by making activities easier, it's going to take less energy away from you. And so it's a positive muscle tissue. So what's going to happen? Not only are you going to be able to lift that weight better, get through your workout better, but all of your health functions are going to be better. If I do something to put a drag, if I add another 300 pounds into my car and make my car pull that 300 pounds around more and more, it's going to degenerate that car faster than if I didn't do that. That's what body fat does to you, and lack of muscle does to you. It's going to improve your overall health markers. And this is what Dr. Laura Defina is saying. And conversely, or on the other side, I should do this more in my podcast, but I should talk about the extremes. So many people, when I'm talking about drinking water, one of my favorite subjects, inevitably, if I talk to people long enough about it or a large enough group, I'm going to have somebody make the comment, yeah, but you can drink too much water, can you? And I roll my eyes about that because when we have a population of over 70% of the world does not drink enough water, I really don't think too much water is our concern. But yes, you can, and what you have to do in order to take in too much water is something that the average sane individual is not going to do. But when it comes to strength training, can you strength train? Can you exercise too much? And actually, the researcher I just quoted a minute ago, Dr. Laura Defina, did a study on this. And I hope it's not a surprise to you that obviously you can. I mean, you can do too much of anything. We see this a lot in runners. And no offense, Garrett said that running's bad for you. And they actually compared the test subjects in this. They said the exercise level that they were doing when they were looking at their calcium scores was on par with running 6 miles a day, 7 days a week at about a 10-minute pace. And they weren't doing it just 1 week. They did it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. No, I'm not against running. I'm a big fan of running. In fact, your strength training, if you do it right, you should be able to run all your life. And I've said on many podcasts, you should be able to run as fast, if not faster. Every year, you should get faster or better at your running. But this is an extreme case. They weren't doing strength training. They were overdoing it, which it shouldn't be a surprise. You can overdo food. You can overdo anything. Too much of the exercise, overdoing it, can actually create a special type of plaque. I found that out in this study. I didn't know that before. That can actually cause problems in your arteries, can cause problems as far as linking to heart disease. No, Garrett did not say exercise causes heart disease. Yeah, you can't overdo it. But since such a small percentage of the world, and definitely of America, work out on a regular basis, I don't feel that that's our fear. But the point of this all is to say that I love hearing about the fact they're talking about strength training for seniors. 35% of our clientele is over the age of 65. You would not believe how amazing some of these individuals are, and especially one individual who's been on a podcast with me before. She literally leads our ladies class. She didn't teach it, but our ladies group classic that happens on Saturdays, everybody in that group, there's 20-year-olds in that group. There's 30s, 50s, all the way up. They're all trying to do as well in the class as this lady does, and she's in her 80s. It would shock you when you saw her. Don't think for a second. Don't think for a second that, that's just because she has good genes. Don't believe that myth. Don't believe that excuse, because that's exactly what it is. When you hear say, well, it must be in your genes, that's somebody that if it's coming from a health professional, that's a health professional who has no other answer, so they're just going to use that one. It's a blanket excuse. No, if you look at her pattern, you look at her nutrition intake, you look at her strength training, look at her lifestyle, her mindset, her nutrition activity. You look at all that, and it's golden. And guess what she's producing? She's producing this incredibly in shape, fantastic body that can compete pretty much with any athlete. Strength training isn't new. It needs to be carried on through life. If you have any questions about this or about strength training yourself, please contact me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach out to me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That's our website and our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at TeamPE if you have any questions about dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness. Strength training all your life, from the cradle to the grave. And if you haven't gotten into it, you can start at any time. Doesn't matter. We've begun people from not a walking pace, not a crawling pace, but what do you say, a thinking about crawling pace if we have to go there. We'll take it and run it at your level, because that's the best way we can help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.